Alright, what's up guys? My name is Gareth from SimpleStudios, the only game studio dedicated to your success. In this video we're going to be doing entry number 2 of my awesome series where I design a game and lead you guys through the process. So, as always with these videos, we're going to be starting off with what we're doing today. So, if you guys remember from last video, we're going to be doing the Wave Manager. And if you're confused about what the Wave Manager is and what it does, essentially what the game is you are a little guy in the middle and there's enemies all around you. They know where you are at all times and they will constantly travel towards you and try to kill you. But obviously you have to kill them before they kill you because they can't kill you if they're dead. Anyway, once you kill all the enemies in the arena, you get a choice of some items and you can pick which items you want. Then after you pick an item, then more enemies come and it all repeats. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be taking a deeper look at the Wave Manager and making sure that enemies can actually spawn at good times, and also to make sure that they don't spawn constantly so that enemies don't spawn when players are picking items. So, now that we've got the recap out of the way, let's take a look at what we're going to be adding. So, over here, what we want to do is we want to track enemies. And the reason why we want to do this is because in our game, when the enemies spawn, the game manager needs to keep track of them so that once they all die, the game manager can bring up a thing that that lets the player pick an item, and then once an item has been picked, the wave manager itself needs to call the new wave, which then spawns more enemies. So admittedly, this is probably going to be the hardest part of today, is actually getting the game manager to track all the enemies, and then if they've all died, tell another script to, for now it will print a debug, but later on it will instantiate some prefabs that the player can click to pick an item, and then after the player has picked an item, it then instantiates the next batch of enemies, and the cycle repeats. And then next, we need to make sure that the integer does not increase. So if we take a look at the game, right over here, and we find our thing. I actually don't know where it is. Let's see. Here we go, yeah. So, yes, if we play the game here, we will see that enemies do spawn just fine. Actually, we'll move the game over here. So we see that enemies spawn just fine, but the wave count increases even though the enemies have not died, and this is a massive issue. So that's what we're going to solve today. And then next up, we're going to be testing everything, and then we're going to be taking a coffee break, which is also coding juice. This is very important if you're programming, or honestly doing anything. And then finally, we're going to upload this bad boy to YouTube, and hopefully you guys like the video, hopefully you guys follow me. I don't really care if you subscribe or not, but I just hope you enjoy the video. Alrighty, and now digging into what tools we're going to be using. So first and foremost, ChatGPT. It's a staple. We all need it. Next up, we've got creativity. I think that one's super important, and honestly, everyone should take a shot at making some games at some point in their life, because no matter how few people like it, as long as you make one person's day better, that's all that matters. And then finally, GIMP. It's just a superior Photoshop. Adobe sucks. So in the introduction, I briefly mentioned about the Wave Manager, and we kind of looked over what it does and how it works. But let's take a deeper dive into it with a bit of a script analysis. Alrighty, and here we are with the script breakdown. So first up we have the Wave Serialized Field. This is essentially the bread and butter of the Wave Manager. It takes in an integer, which is the wave value, and the enemy prefab. And the enemy prefabs. Now we'll get to the enemy prefabs a little bit later, but the wave value is a little interesting thing that we put together and works with the integer. So if we take a look at the game manager, we can see that this has a wave value of 1, and this has a wave count of 0. If we make another wave here, and we'll call this wave value 2, essentially what's supposed to happen is when we run the game, a timer will start, this delay. When the timer hits 0, wave count increases. Whoops. Wave count increases, and then the entry in waves, if the wave value matches the wave count, then it spawns that wave. So, again, if we just run the game really quickly here, we can see that wave 1, it has a wave value of 1, and 4 enemy prefabs will spawn. So there we go. The delay is over, and 4 enemy prefabs spawn. Now, 8 enemy prefabs have spawned because, if you notice down here in the wave count, that increased to 2 pretty quickly, And as you see, and as you can see right here, we have a wave number 2. So now that we've covered that, let's take a look at the enemy spawn. So essentially what this is it's a serialized field inside of a serialized field, and this lets us add any amount of enemy prefabs and an infinite amount of enemy amounts. So we'll be showing this a little bit later on in the series, but we will have multiple different enemies coming from these waves, and they're all going to have different amounts, and this essentially just lets us custom make waves without having to manually set them up in code. And then next up we have the timer logic. So essentially when the game starts, the timer counts down from delay, which is 2.5 seconds, and goes down to 0. When it hits 0, let's see if we can find it here. The wave value is supposed to increase by 1. Here we go. So the wave count is supposed to increase by 1, and then, oh yeah, here we go. So here we can see it's resetting, but we need to change this so that when all the enemies are dead, then it resets. But anyway, the way it works right now is once timer hits 0, wave count increases by 1, and the timer resets. And then as we can see right here, this is the start wave method. Essentially what it does is it takes all of the points that are in the map, as we can see a list of spawn points here. It takes all of the spawn points that are around and spawns enemies at these random locations. As we can see, it's pretty simple right now, but eventually it'll be something a little bit more sophisticated. And this is just to keep the game fresh. That's it. And that's pretty much all there is to the base of the Wave Manager. And again, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be expanding the Wave Manager so that it's not that basic. We're going to have it track the enemies, and if they are dead, then it starts the next wave instead of just starting the next wave after the timer hits 0. And then finally, we're going to be making sure that the integer doesn't increase. And this kind of ties in with the tracking of enemies, but yeah, let's get to it. Alrighty. And we are back with some changes. So really quick, let me run you through what we have done now. So I actually kind of ditched the idea of having the Wave Manager linked to the Game Manager because, I don't know, I think it's better if the Wave Manager just handles it and the Game Manager kind of does its own thing. But essentially what's happened is we now have a list for enemies that are spawned. When a wave starts, all of the enemies are spawned and they are added into a list. The Wave Manager then keeps track of this list. When an enemy dies, we added a method in the enemy health component right here. And we can see up here, this is what we really want to pay attention to, because when an enemy dies, it will tell the Wave Manager, hey, I'm dead now, take me off the list, and the Wave Manager will remove it from the list, thus reducing the amount of enemies in the list. If all of the enemies in the list are gone, then it will print a debug, saying that all the enemies are dead, and then the timer will reset. So, let's test it out, and fingers crossed that it actually works. Okay. Alright. Theoretically, this should... Oh. Before we do that, actually, we need to make a weapon so that we can actually kill enemies. That's correct. Yeah, I'll be right back. Okay, now we have our Sword of Doom. Now, this thing should kill all the enemies in range, and this activates whenever we press E. I might change it later. I might not. I don't know just yet. We'll figure it out as we progress in the series. And so this is going to be in the Sacred Weapons folder. Now, when the game actually releases, you'll only have access to the Weapons folder, but I'm probably going to leave some ways to get the Sacred Weapons, like the Sword of Doom, and whatever else I happen to think of. But for the time being, let's add our Sword of Doom to the player. Alright, there we go. And yeah, let's test this new Wave Manager out. Whoops, what's going on there? Okay, well, let's see. What are we missing here? Okay, we are back. So essentially what happened there, I really don't know how I didn't catch this immediately, but the reason why it wasn't working is because we were using sphere colliders, and if you don't know math, spheres are not two-dimensional. So essentially we were using 3D detection for a 2D game, and needless to say, it was not working, and Unity was not very happy with what we were doing. So after adjusting a few things, mainly just changing sphere to circle and collider to collider 2D, we ended up having it function mainly with the attack. That was the that was the issue initially, but now that we've adjusted it to be more 2D focused, it works perfectly fine, as you saw in the little test there. So honestly, that kind of tackles two things in once, but we're just going to do one more test and make sure that this is correct. To ensure that the wave count does not increase when until all the enemies die. Yep, alright, awesome. And now, I guess we will do one more bonus thing that was not on the plan. That's actually, let me check how much time we're at here. 1 second. Okay, so we are kind of running out of time, but yeah, I really don't care. Let's do one more thing, and that is going to be in adjusting the Wave Manager script to tell the game manager when a wave has ended, and then the game manager adds some kind of pop-up or something. We'll just make it a pop-up for now. And then once we close the pop-up, then it will trigger the next wave. So let me break this down in GIMP here really quickly. We'll just use this. So essentially what's happening is the Wave Manager, so WM for Wave Manager, and GM for Game Manager. When a wave ends, it will it will trigger a method in the Game Manager that instantiates a pop-up saying wave or whatever it says, right? After it does this, then there will be a button on the thing. When the button is clicked, it tells the Game Manager that the button has been clicked, and a method will then trigger in the Game Manager to tell the Wave Manager. The button will trigger an event in the Game Manager to tell the Wave Manager that the next wave can start. So we'll do new wave, and then once that ends, it will go to the end wave and repeat the process. It's a little odd, but it's okay. Now we'll make a new pop-up. Alright, and so as you guys can probably tell from that awesome little demonstration, everything went super smoothly, which I'm actually pretty surprised about, but regardless, we got it done. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.